You're listening to the Back Porch Talk podcast. Danny and Jason had many discussions and debates on the back porch while making pivotal investment moves with assets. That's right, with trading cards. They welcome you to the back porch and right into those discussions about current sports news with a fresh and unique twist. So come on and join us. Welcome to the Back Porch Talk podcast. I'm your coach Jason.
Coach Danny.
Week 1 in the NFL and college football. Danny, right into it. My Packers took this L on Friday night, man. And it was the first game in Brazil. And it was a decent game. It was a sloppy game. The turf was not the greatest, but both teams had to play on it. This was a loss in two ways, one in the game and one in losing Jordan Love for a few weeks due to sprained MCL. So it looks like he's going to be out for a few weeks. But man, just an impressive showing by really the Eagles. They looked a lot cleaner. Saquon Barkley just tore it up, man. You talk about a team debut. Saquon Barkley with 109 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns on 24 carries, and then also receiving a touchdown. The Packers started off slow. They had to get in some kind of rhythm. Looked like they did a little bit more into the second half. The debut of Josh Jacobs to me wasn't that impressive in the first half. He started to really come on a little bit more in the second half. I want to see more of Emmanuel Wilson run the ball. He had 4 carries for 46 yards. I would have loved to have seen him a lot more. And I think they went to him in the first half because Josh Jacobs was struggling. That old line was struggling to block for him too to start off. But Josh Jacobs ends up with 16 carries, 84 yards. I have to say, Jayden Reed had a game for you, man. A rush for 33 yards, a touchdown. Romeo Doubs had 4 catches for 50 yards. Jayden Reed again had 4 catches for 138 yards and a touchdown. The Packers, they started to hum a little bit, but it wasn't enough for this game, first game in Brazil. So we'll see. I think the NFL will go back down to Brazil. I can see that happening. There's a fan base that's growing down there, which could tap into more money, more resources for the NFL on this side of the hemisphere. So we'll see, Danny. What say you about your first weekend in the NFL?
First, Jason, on that Packers game, Saquon almost had 4 touchdowns. He came up a yard short, and they were more or less trying to ice the game. And then Jalen Hurts fumbled on the tush push, which actually, if they score, Jordan Love, in theory, may not get hurt because the game would be over. But they actually had a chance, which, Packers are going, trying to get because they were down 5 for an opportunity. So it's just one of those things, man. It's just bad circumstances from Jordan Love's perspective. But great showing by Saquon, man. He looked really good. And spry, and A.J. Brown too, man. I don't know what Jair Alexander was doing with A.J. Brown. I'm like, man, that's the wrong person you want to be talking smack to. And A.J. Brown made him pay. So,
Well,
yes, he did. But on to my Falcons, and tough start. And it's one of those games, man, where no preseason, and you saw this in a lot of the NFL games, where that no preseason, man, really impacts the flow of the games. And there's a lot of mistakes, a lot of overthrown balls, routes. It's just, you name it. This is where you think the defense would be ahead at this point. And that really showed on the Atlanta side because Kirk Cousins, if they could cut somebody right now, after that performance yesterday, he'd be the one, but they can't because he's guaranteed money. He had 1 touchdown. He threw for 155 yards, 2 picks. And if you notice, Jason, If you watch the game, he couldn't really pivot off that foot, that Achilles foot, he or that that leg, and so he wasn't under center. He was in shotgun, and these are all things that are not in his wheelhouse. So I don't know what's going on there. Drake London, 2 catches for 15 yards. It was atrocious. And the bad part was the defense held the Steelers to 18, 6 field goals. Justin Fields got the start because Russell Wilson was out. And so the defense, held up their side of the bargain. It was the offense. So we play next Monday night against the Eagles on the road. And so we got some time to try to figure some things out as far as what that looked like, because they're going to hear it from the fan base. And you already know with that type of performance, whose name is ringing in the background, Michael Penix. But I just want to see, how does Kirk Cousins progress from this terrible outing? It was not it. And this is one of the reasons I did not want Kirk Cousins, because I know he has these type of performances, injured or not. He has these type of duds. So we'll see if he bounces back. He's not a spring chicken anymore. You have an injury like this. We're going to see Aaron Rodgers tonight and how he bounces back from his Achilles, but just terrible from the Falcons' perspective. And then from other games, man, you had the Thursday night game, I think was the best game of the weekend, actually, between the Chiefs and the Ravens. Bears. So you had a lot of rookies, their debuts. Caleb Williams didn't have the best debut. Jaden Daniels, stat-wise, he had a good debut, but if you watch the game, he was just dinking and dunking against the Buccaneers. So the Bengals lost to the Patriots. The Browns, man, man, Deshaun Watson, I don't know, man. So there was a lot there from a first week perspective, but I just say no preseason. You gotta get those first couple of weeks are gonna be a little rough, and then things will kind of, once you get that first quarter of the season, then I think things will look a little bit better, especially on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I have to agree there. I think the first couple games are going to be a little rough. That Packers game with all the penalties and everything can attest to that. Danny, that was one of the Lions versus the Rams. Lions actually prevailed there in overtime, and James Williams, the wide receiver out of Alabama, man. Listen, I think the Lions got something to prove. I think they're hungry, no pun intended there, to improve upon what they did last year, because I think they realized they were right there at the Super Bowl. The Lions going to be tough, man. Jordan Love being out a few weeks here, I think the division right now is going to be in the hands of the Lions, just because 4 or 5 games that Jordan Love misses, unless Malik Willis miraculously, comes in and introduces a quarterback controversy. I don't know how this quad is really going to, handle the likes of the Colts. In the Green Bay schedule, you have the Vikings coming up, divisional rival. You have the Cardinals. You have the Titans, and then you have the Rams, and then you have the Texans. So those are the next 5 games. Those are the next few games. So hopefully we can, come up with at least a 500 record there until Jordan Love gets back. I did watch a little bit of the Chargers Raiders. I'm not going to lie to you, man. I feel bad for Devontae Adams. He was expected to obviously play with Carr, his college teammate. That was the reason why he decided to leave, go with the Raiders, and then ultimately he's now playing with Gardner Minshew, who actually had a decent, okay game, but it just still wound up with an L. I just want better for Devontae Adams, man. He's like all-pro wide receiver, the best receiver we have out there, and I want to see him do well. I don't want him to be traded to a team when he is older and halfway contributes.
And that
And I
may
think
happen, Jay, this year. It may happen if they start off slow, and if he start complaining, he may get his wish
I,
because that's
I
what
think it's going to take
I'm
that.
hoping they would do right by him for that.
Yeah, I think it's going to take that.
Yep.
I think it's going to take that, quite honestly, to get him out of there. Out of there. I just don't see how the Raiders, win here. I really don't. The other game, I would say that caught my attention here was with everything happening with the Dolphins pre-game. By now, everybody's heard of Tyreek Hill, the issues with the office with law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but he still comes out with 7 catches, 130 yards, and 1 touchdown. He still balls. But the Dolphins, that's a team I think to watch out for up until winter,
Mm-hmm.
and then it goes downhill from there. Um, so we'll see, man. Another one, the lastly, man, the Cowboys against the Browns. Congratulations to Dak Prescott getting paid. Of course, $240 million over 4 years, so he's a.
Mm-hmm.
But man, the other person who got paid a lot of money was Deshaun Watson a couple of years ago, and man, the Browns' offense looks terrible. The defense is doing what they can do, but they need a little help on offense. And right now, Deshaun Watson and the team, they're just not doing it. Hopefully, they get in some kind of rhythm here for Deshaun Watson's sake. We'll see what happens with Deshaun. And they also have Jameis Winston on the roster.
Yep.
I can see them possibly, going that way if things don't improve fast. Take on that multi-million dollars that they get, that they already given Deshaun Watson. So we'll see. But those are the games for NFL week 1. And then, of course, tonight's the Jets in San Francisco. Aaron Rodgers coming back from the Achilles injury. We'll see what happens there. And now then you're on to college football, and where exciting week. I think the games of interest for me was that of Texas and Michigan. Listen, I was getting all hyped and excited for this game. Come to find out, this turned out to be a blowout. Well, that Texas put on Michigan, man, in the big house at that, man. And this was not even a contest. And so Texas goes in, beats up on Michigan 31-12. They were the number 3 ranked team. I think they moved up to number 2 behind Georgia. And man, they look good in doing it. Another game that to me was a surprise was the South Florida Alabama game. It's closer than 42-16. Because South Florida was in this game in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
So that was another surprise to me. I think Alabama still needs to shake off some rust. Still needs to find themselves. They go up to Wisconsin next Saturday to play Badgers. So we'll see what happens there. And a couple more games, Danny, real quickly.
Mm-hmm.
One, of course, my Florida A&M Rattlers playing University of Miami. Yeah, we lost that one, 56-9. We got blown out of the water, but man, listen, we scored 9 points, and I'm happy that we scored. I'm happy that for the most part we came out with no injuries, no major injuries. I'm also happy that student athletes were able to showcase their talent. They got some of their footage on film. I'm happy that we got the $700,000.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we need that, but I think this is more importantly, and we do this every year, Danny. It's almost kind of like the money games is something that we talk about every single year, and every single year, my hope is that it's a calling card for alumni to give even more. And so I know I'll be giving to increase the alumni giving rate, but more importantly, to hopefully prevent us from having to play on these money games moving forward. But we'll see. The other game, that Buffalo Nebraska game, Danny, I don't know if it's time for us to really just we hear what Prime is saying, but it's not translating on the field. The defensive line and the offensive line, I don't know what's going on there. And to me, it hasn't gotten better. And they're going to need it to get better if they want to, move up, if they want to, get to a bowl game at this point. And so
Yep.
we'll see. But those are the games that really, I wanted to highlight. How about you?
A couple J outside the ones you mentioned. Oklahoma State and Arkansas. This one went to double overtime, and Arkansas was actually beating them pretty well. And Oklahoma State came back, took it to OT. Both teams missed a field goal to win the game, or Arkansas would have, been up 3, and Oklahoma State would have had a chance to tie. Both of them missed, and then Oklahoma State actually ended up winning this game by 8. So it was a really good game. Iowa State came back on Iowa, beat them by 1 late in the game. Notre Dame laid an egg against Northern Illinois this weekend, where it was capped off by that blocked field goal. But man, Notre Dame, they seem to have these games every year, like these letdowns where they should just destroy a team, and they let them hang around, and they got burnt. Now they drop down, and this is going to be one of those games, that factor into the playoff. And how does that factor in down the line? But their schedule is pretty easy until I think they meet USC later in the season. They should be able to build up some equity, and then they just got to beat USC. Yeah, the Colorado-Nebraska game, Sanders was under so much pressure at the quarterback from the quarterback's perspective that they're just going at him. And they're lucky not to be 0-2. Let's just put it like that. Because it could definitely be 0-2 right now. So at least 1-1. It's one of those things, man. You bring the attention on yourself, and a lot of people are against them right now. So it's kind of them against the world. And this is where you see if the players have it in them to bring it. But sometimes too, man, it's just talent. And they may not have the talent to support what they're saying with all the transfers and everything like that. So that's where I think they're lacking, and we'll see if they can bounce back.
And then this point, man, looking at their schedule, they play at Colorado State, against Baylor, at UCF, at home against Kansas State, at Arizona, against Cincinnati, against Texas Tech, against Utah, against Kansas, and against Oklahoma State. Man, look, I don't know if they're going to get 5 wins, let alone 6, just to get into a bowl game. This ain't good, man. I don't know what they do from an offensive line and defensive line perspective, but man, this is going to be a tough sled for them getting to a bowl game. 2 years in a row not being in the bowl. If they only get 4 or 5 victories this year, there's no improvement there. So you got to start wondering, that's year 2 going into year 3, and you're going to lose Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. You're going to lose them to the NFL, to the draft. I don't see them staying.
No. And do you lose Coach Prime then, since Shedeur out? Is he gone then too? Just on the mere fact of his son's not there. Either of his sons, because what else is he sticking around for?
I think he needed to prove that he can coach himself out of this, that he can recruit himself out of that, because if he's looking to stay in college football, I think he has to prove himself to get out of there, to get out of that mess. Now, unless he goes to a lesser program and, go ahead and build from there.
Unless unless and how Florida State does this year.
That's true.
If they struggle, you already seen the first two games.
Oh, they look terrible, man.
And if coach doesn't make it through the season, that may be his end to get out of Colorado to go to Florida State.
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe, last year, before the
Mm-hmm.
year started, before Florida State went on that, undefeated season
Yeah.
run. But now, if you're Florida State, do you get rid of the coach?
I'm just saying, I'm thinking hypothetically here. If they go like, I don't know, 8-5,
They look terrible, man.
where you're a top 10 team preseason, right?
Mhm.
And you lose to all these teams that you shouldn't be losing to, that's means for dismissal at a university like that. And if they have the opportunity, I don't know if they want Coach Prime or not, but I'm just saying that's his alma mater.
Mhm.
It would make sense. It'd be a good match. That's just something hypothetically to think about.
Well, listen, Dan, I'm looking at this Florida State schedule, man. I don't know if they even gonna go to a bowl.
So I'm just saying that might be his out is Shador and
Yeah,
Travis
yeah.
Hunter go this way.
hmm
Florida State, he goes to Florida State.
But here's the unknown to that, because Florida State got this lawsuit with the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that play a part in Prime's thinking? If he wants to even deal with that
Yep.
aspect. This is going to be interesting, but man, I think those are two programs that are in trouble.
Thank you for joining us at Back Porch Talk Podcast. You can also join us on Twitter by tweeting us at back_podcast. For more information, you can go to our website, which is backporchtalkpodcast.com. You can also email us at backporchtalkpodcast@gmail.com. Again, thank you for joining us, and remember that there's enough hate in the world, so go ahead and spread a little love.